Every human being who has ever lived has asked the same terrifying question. What happens after we die? Because one day, every single one of us will find out. Most people imagine death as pain, a violent ending, a final moment of fear. But strangely, that may not be what happens at all. Chapter 1. The reality. Is it painful? It looks intense. The body might shake or release fluids. It looks like a struggle. But here is the truth. The body's movements are not what the person feels. To address the physical realities of the end-of-life process, it is important to distinguish between mechanical body reflexes and conscious perception. When the body enters its final stages, it undergoes a systemic shutdown where the brain's ability to control and inhibit various bodily functions begins to fail. As oxygen levels drop and cellular energy production ceases, it leads to involuntary motor responses like shivering or twitching, which occur because the nervous system is misfiring due to a lack of regulatory signals rather than reaction to pain. Similarly, other physical signs, such as heavy breathing or the release of fluids, are purely mechanical consequences of organ failure. Happens because the brain's respiratory center can no longer coordinate the diaphragm effectively, not because the individual is experiencing air hunger. Ultimately, these movements are symptomatic of a biological system losing its structural integrity, much like a computer displaying static when its processor fails. Pain is a complex cognitive experience that requires the thalamus and sensory cortex to interpret signals. During the final moments of life, these areas are often suppressed due to severe oxygen deprivation. Furthermore, the body frequently releases endogenous opioids, which act as natural painkillers, likely facilitating a state where the conscious self is dissociated from these reflexive physical errors. Consequently, what appears as an intense struggle to an outside observer is scientifically understood as a series of reflexive, involuntary mechanical shutdowns rather than an expression of suffering. So, the death is not pain, but it's rather a process. Now, let's understand what happens after the death. Chapter 2. The Ancient Clues. For thousands of years, many religions left us clues. The Bible. In 2 Corinthians 5-8, it states, "We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body, and to be present with the Lord." This suggests that the soul is not the body itself, but a guest currently residing within it. The Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 2, verse 22, it says, quote, "As a person sheds worn-out garments and wears new ones, likewise, at the time of death, the soul casts off its worn-out body and enters into a new one." This is a clear statement that the self is indestructible, merely changing its appearance. The Quran. In Surah Al-Baqarah 2-156, it reminds us who, when disaster strikes them, say, "Indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him we will return." This establishes the concept of the return, that consciousness originated from an infinite source and is returning to that source. Why do all these different religions point to the same truth? Because they realized that who you are on the inside is not meant to stay here forever. Chapter 3. The Scientific Anchor. The Orch-OR Theory. In the mid-1990s, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Sir Roger Penrose and leading anesthesiologist Dr. Stuart Hameroff proposed the Orch-OR theory. They discovered that inside our brain cells are tiny, hollow structures called microtubules. Their research suggests that these structures are capable of holding quantum information. According to their findings, when a person dies, this quantum information, the very essence of you, is not destroyed. Instead, it is released back into the universe. Why is this huge? It matches the first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. When the brain stops functioning, the quantum data that makes up your consciousness doesn't die. It is simply uncoupled from the physical body and returned to the fundamental fabric of reality. This is a mathematical and biological framework proving yourself is an eternal energetic signal. Chapter 4. The Real-Life Analogy. Think of your body like a vintage radio. For your whole life, this radio has been playing music, the music of you, your laughter, your deepest memories, the way you see the colors of the sunset. But here is the secret. The radio doesn't create the music. It just catches the signal that is already floating in the air. Even if the radio's tubes burn out, even if the speakers crack and the power cuts, the symphony playing in the air doesn't stop. It doesn't die. It was never inside the box. It was always out there, in the space around us. When the body finally stops, you don't disappear. You simply stop being limited by the frequency of that one device, i.e. your body. You are finally tuning back into the infinite, roaring symphony of the universe. Conclusion. Death isn't an ending. It is the moment the radio is finally put aside, so the symphony can finally fill the whole room. There is no more static, no more interference, and no more limits. There is only the warmth of every beautiful memory you ever made, and a feeling of perfect, endless consciousness. It's a little sad to say goodbye to the body that carried you through this life, but how wonderful it is to finally be the music itself again. You are returning home to the giant, beautiful song of the universe. Most people are afraid to talk about this because they think it's dark. But once you realize it's just a transition, the fear vanishes. Does that change how you're living your life today? Answer honestly. I'm looking for the most thoughtful perspective in the comments.